morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day to join us for this special web event. I would now like to introduce and pass the floor to our presenter today, Product Manager for Mojo Networks, Varun Anand. Varun comes to us with over 12 years of experience in the industry. And without any further ado, Varun, take the floor.
Thank you, Erica. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to talk to you today. And we'll talk about Mojo One and how we can harness the power of single sign-on. I would like to start with a report that I was reading over the weekend. It was an IDC report that predicted 50% of IT services would be delivered from the cloud, and the percentage of applications deployed in the cloud would soar from 16% to 44% in the same time period. Another Gartner report suggested that companies are moving towards the cloud and not away from it. They found that 75% of organizations have already integrated or want to integrate public cloud services with their on-prem data center-centric resources. What we see in parallel is a spurt of applications. Our marketing team wants to use HubSpot and Marketo. Sales wants to use Salesforce, Discover.org. Finance wants to use new tools which help them with crunch numbers faster. The pace at which these applications enter the enterprise is relentless. So the report also mentioned that primary evaluation criteria for IT administrators is security. And what they want to do is extend policies and their security frameworks from the enterprises to the cloud. All of this starts with a single sign-on. So the outline for today, with the advent of multiple applications, single sign-on is a necessity. We'll start with the challenges faced by the organizations in accessing multiple applications using single sign-on. Then we'll present how Mojo One addresses these problems, while we keep our sight on frequent use cases. Then we talk about a few features of Mojo One, go deep into a product demo towards the end of the demonstration. A little bit about me. Erica explained, I've over 12 years of industry experience. I work as a cloud and enterprise product manager at Mojo. I've been with Mojo for 4+ years, and I'm very passionate about AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. I've worked in network security before, so I'm super excited about today's topic. And as Erica said, feel free to ask your questions in the chat window, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. We will definitely send you the questions post-webinar in a follow-up email. Let's start with the challenges. The three primary challenges faced by administrators are about who has access to my network? Does that user need access to my network or the application? Which department is he from? How long does he need the access? Further, after authentication is authorization. What level of access does the user have? Can they edit network settings, or can they only view them? Should they have access to see the guest SSID splash page, or should they be able to change them? Further, people move jobs, change jobs, move companies. The applications should be able to cope up with that. Managing permissions with a distributed application and cloud-hosted hybrid model is becoming really, really difficult. The most question, again, is security. Are my applications secure? Can my users be compromised? What if users do not choose a strong password? What if users' passwords are compromised? What if my company policy mandates that I have to leverage my Active Directory? Does the cloud support it? And last, what about compliance? Will I be able to log the user actions securely? So the first, control access. We are able to find out SSO allows users to access multiple resources with a single action of authentication and authorization, thereby eliminating the need to remember multiple passwords. So this helps in reducing, to a very, very large extent, the possibility of human errors while accessing network resources. We'll go through that in a demo. We'll show how a single sign-on helps you leverage these, harness these capabilities. Administrators further have complete visibility into who has access to the network, what actions the users have been taking. And with multiple services in the Mojo Cloud does not mean multiple passwords. One set of credentials, and we leverage them for access. There also is an option to use Mojo One as an identity provider, or you could use your enterprise's identity provider for a federated login. We'll talk about that detail in just a bit. We'll go over that workflow. We'll do a demo as well. Moreover, the access controls that we extend are flexible. You can choose what level of access should each user have. You can group users together and assign them a particular profile so that that particular group of users has the same set of privileges. Next, we want to answer the what. We answer that with granular access. We have deep controls over the permissions granted to users that can be grouped into user profiles and extend beyond Mojo Cloud applications. For example, a profile can be made for all the lobby ambassadors, and the members of this group will only be able to share and create guest credentials. They would be able to onboard guests who visit you in your offices, who visit you in your schools, temporary visitors, and they would not be able to modify any of the network settings. When a new member joins that team, simply add them to this group and they inherit these permissions. And if somebody leaves the team, simply move them out of the group into a different user group, and voila. This helps create a very scalable and repeatable permissions model. And in case of a federated login, these profiles and roles map into the local Active Directory or identity provider user groups. Lastly, we bring in security with multi-factor. We support two-factor authentication, which makes the cloud and hence the enterprise network much more secure. All communication with and within the cloud is using secure 256-bit TLS encryption. Administrators can force a particular user or a set of users or all users to use a two-factor authentication. Additionally, all users' activities are logged. Who changed the SSID, at what time, where did they log in from, even the IP address. So you have complete visibility into your system, who logged into your network, what did he do, where did he log in from. Did he use a local login or a federated login? Very, very detailed audit logs, all of them are available for compliance. These permissions and logs also extend into APIs and machine-to-machine communication. We'll talk about that as well in a bit. So let's talk about federated logins and how do those work in our cloud. On the left-hand side, we have the Mojo Cloud, and on the right, we represent the customer enterprise network. The Mojo Cloud, federated logins in Mojo Cloud allow your user to log into the cloud using your enterprise Active Directory or a similar service. It allows you to control who has access to those applications, for example, the network resources, and what level of access do they have. So when you allow access to create permission sets, and those permissions get mapped to user profiles. For example, when, let's say, a user called John Doe logs in, we would forward that user to using a SAML request to your identity provider in step number 2. Your IDP would look up the user database, probably an AD, and then reply with a SAML response signed by your by our identity provider, and tell us that user John Doe has access to these networks, his email address or his user credentials are this, and allow him access for this specified set of network resources. That is typically done through a user profile that is returned, and we would then validate the SAML response is indeed signed by our organization, and once we are satisfied, we would allow John Doe access. Now, in case the user John is logging in for the first time, we would do something called a just-in-time provisioning and John would not see any change in the network or in the login flow, and he would simply be able to log in and access the network. The next time, let's say John is no longer with the IT department, he's moved and he's changed roles. When we forward the SAML request, your IDP would return that John Doe no longer has access, and we would not grant him access any longer. So this the federation, this login workflow is very, very flexible. It gives the IT administrators complete control over who has access to the network and where can they access it from. In this flow, I would like to point out that the Mojo Cloud would never reach out to your IDP directly. Neither do we expect your IDP to come and talk to our cloud. All of the logging in and the authentication process is through user browser redirects. So there is no we do not require you to open any firewall rules, put in any special firewall rules to be able to facilitate this communication. We also support something called a service provider initiated flow. So instead of the request starting from number 1, it would start from number 3. You could have a portal of your own, and you simply have a login URL for Mojo Cloud, and the flow starts. Let's talk about two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication means it's providing security by something you know, for example, a password, and by something you have, for example, a code, which could be generated by a phone, by an email, by an SMS. So we support multiple time-based authentication authenticators. There are multiple ones available in the market. Google Authenticator, Authy, Duo Mobile, there are many available. And in case somebody loses their code-generating device, we have backup codes that can be generated using external factors like emails. A time-based OTP is very simple to set up. You do not need to roll it out and handhold your users. We also allow to do a protracted rollout. You can configure a certain set of users and force them to have a two-factor authentication while the rest of your users do not. For example, you could force all the IT administrators and part of the IT admin group to have a two-factor authentication, while the lobby ambassadors and the receptionists do not need to have it. Once you're comfortable that the system is working fine, you could force all users to do it. And when you do that, your users do not need to come to you. We onboard them very easily, and they can sign in, configure their mobile phones very, very easily, without any interaction or assistance from the IT. Now, this year marks the start of the mobile and the big data age in the enterprise. A related trend was machine-to-machine communication. So enterprises want to find out how are their users using the Wi-Fi network? How are the users signing on and getting onto the network? Are they facing any issues? We have a very, very rich framework of APIs. Those APIs give you very deep insights into how people are using it, what kind of network throughput are they getting, are there any customers or any users who are facing issues. Your apps can talk to the Mojo Cloud provision, activate, deactivate, or locate devices used by your users. APIs are key to this model. So API keys generate an authentication session, which is a temporary key for all communication. And we then use this session ID to be able to facilitate a very efficient, very fast API-based machine-to-machine communication. The key in itself has an entropy of 128 bits and a length of 32 bits, making it virtually impossible to brute force authentication attacks. Further, like users, API keys are independent of master users. So you could create an API and use that in an application with your developer. The API, if it is compromised, you can switch it off in a simple configuration on the UI. And like users, APIs are also mapped to user profiles. You can have very formidable controls in terms of who has access which application has what level of access to the network. And like always, we log all of these activities, whether it's for users or for applications. The precise roles and user profiles that you define for applications and APIs, we limit the amount of information accessible to that application, or even affect the changes that it can affect. This makes sure that even if an application goes rogue, it cannot affect beyond the set of permissions that it has access to. So let's do a quick summary. We talked about cloud SSO. We spoke about federated logins and how to leverage your existing ID infrastructure to authenticate and authorize users. We talked about permission management, user profiles, and roles. We also talked about two-factor authentication and spoke about how you can secure and make your network much more secure by forcing a two-factor authentication. And how these user profiles and roles map into the IDP. We also spoke about machine-to-machine, non-interactive, key-based authentication, and finally, most important, logging. Accounting is the core of all compliance. The fact that all user and application activity is logged is available in our cloud at a convenience of a click for since the time you've started up using our services. Let me jump into a quick demo and demonstrate how we use federated login. I'm going to try to log into the corporate network at Mojo Networks. Simply go in, put in the email address, and I would be forwarded to the identity provider in my network. If the identity provider is available on the internet, I get access to the AD, or if it is in my private network, I would probably need to be on the VPN, and I get complete access to the network without having to create a different set of credentials. I as a user with my AD, I can only view the wireless networks, and when I log in, I have the appropriate permissions. I cannot manage other users, so I get an authorization error, and I cannot view who the other users are. This also gives me the flexibility of finding out what other services I have access to. I have access to the support portal to be able to view and see if I can troubleshoot the issues on my own. Other people, what do they say about the issues that I'm facing? Mojo Canvas, create cool splash pages, and a mobile management tool that we have called Nano. What I'll also do is I'll log out from this now and use a credential which is an administrative credential in our cloud. And with this, I will show you that the various users who've logged in, my permissions seem to be revoked. I do not have access to the network anymore. So, but what we do is we go to the admin. As an administrator, when I go in, I would be able to view the users who've logged in. When did they last log in? What is their email address? What time zone did they log in from? What level of access did they have? Were they a viewer? What profile did they use? And what actions did they take? So the administrative tool, the panel gives me very detailed information about the level of privileges I have. I would now like to open the floor for a set of Q&A. Erica, do we have any questions that have come up till now?
Yes, I have a couple questions that have come in here. Is federated login available only with a specific package?
Excellent question. Of both the packages that are available in our cloud, Enterprise and Enterprise Elite, the federated login is available through both these packages. There is no special entitlement or package that is required. It is a base configuration that we offer from our cloud.
There's a question, Varun, that came in of whether or not we support single log out. Varun, I'm not sure if you could hear me. There's a question that came in around whether or not we support single sign out or single log out, I should say.
Oh, I was still answering the previous one, but yeah. So we support logging out of Mojo Cloud. As soon as you log out of any service, Wi-Fi management, guest management, or Mojo One, that invalidates the session that we have in our cloud, and the user is logged out and is redirected back to Mojo One. So yes, we support a single logout out of all services offered from our cloud.
I have a question here around what IDPs are supported.
Wow. So we support all the IDPs that support SAML 2.0. SAML is the assertion markup language, version 2.0, which means that all major IDPs, Microsoft Active Directory, Microsoft Azure AD in the cloud, One Login, Duo Mobile, even some plugins for Google apps. So we support all these SAML 2.0 assertions IDPs. And if you have any specific IDP that you would want further help with, you could reach out to your sales rep or to our support team, and we would be glad to help you.
Follow-up question, does this mean that all users who are configured in my IDP get access to Mojo One?
Oh, no, absolutely not. This is firmly in your control. We have no visibility into how and what level of access do you want to grant to your users. For example, in the demo, I only have a viewer access to my corporate network, and that access was unfortunately revoked. But I as a viewer, can only view the network settings. You can firmly control what level of access do your individual users have, and what control do they have in the Mojo Cloud. Any more?
Yeah. One question came in around federated. In case of a federated login, will Mojo One cache the user's login request?
Wow. Yes and no. So what we do is when the user logs in for the first time, we create a session, and if the user does not log in, that session is valid with us and effectively with the user's browser. So we do not particularly cache a session, but we set a cookie in if I may use the technology. So we set a cookie in the user's browser, and if he comes back with a valid cookie, we obviously let him in. And if he clicks log out, we delete that cookie and delete the session. But what we would still do is we would create a log of what time did the user log in, and in case of a timeout, we would mention in the logs that the user timed out versus a log out, and we would cache some user information like the email address, first name, and so on.
Great, thank you, Varun. I have one more question here, so I just wanted to open the floor and make sure everyone submits their questions. If we don't get to your question today, or you have any other comments to follow this event, please feel free to contact Varun at any of these emails that you see here, or for additional information, you can feel free to visit our website as well. The last question I see here that came in is what's required by Mojo One to set up the trust relationship? And I'm not sure if you could hear, I just had one more question that came in here. What is required by Mojo One to set up the trust relationship?
Yeah, so I was on mute and I was speaking to myself. Sorry. So the in in uh, in our cloud, when you go to the administrative tab, you would find the option to download the metadata of our IDP. You would need to put that metadata in your Active Directory. There are steps and help provided in that screen itself that would guide you in terms of what information, in case you do not want to download the metadata and want to fill in the information yourself, it is available on that screen. And you could share, you would also need to share the same information, the metadata, signed metadata of your authenticating server, and share it with our cloud. All of this is encrypted. The data is encrypted at rest and in transit. So this means that all the metadata that you share with us, it does not, first of all, contain any private, individually identifiable information, and it is secure in our data warehouse. So the trust relationship setup is fairly easy. Just download and upload the metadata information, and you're done.
Great, thank you. That appears to be all the questions we have today. As I mentioned, if you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact us directly at myrep@mojonetworks.com or visit the website. Just want to review how to get your free access point. So all those attendees today who qualify will receive a free access point, an 802.11ac. You can contact your Mojo Networks rep directly at the phone number you see here on the screen, or you can send us an email at myrep@mojonetworks.com. As we've mentioned previously, all of our valued resellers and distributors, partners, are not eligible for free access points. But if you have any questions, you can feel free again to reach out to the email below. We again thank everybody for taking time out of their busy day and schedules to join us for this event. We have quite a few more upcoming webinars, so if you have any additional interest, please visit our webinars page at mojonetworks.com, and we will be highlighting some additional features in the coming months, including Airtight, Mojo Airtight, which is our security and list function. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Erica.